My name is Marina, and I am 34 years old. I just walked out of my husband's hospital room after saying what I believed would be my final goodbye. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of loving him, caring for him, sacrificing everything for him. I thought watching him die was the worst pain I would ever feel. I was wrong. The real pain came moments later when I stopped in the hallway and heard two nurses talking. What they said destroyed everything I thought I knew. Before I share this story with you, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. This journey is long and painful, but I promise you by the end, you will see how I found strength I never knew I had. So stay with me, and let us begin from the very beginning. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a small house with a patchy lawn and a mother who worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. My father left when I was 12. One morning he was there eating cereal at the kitchen table, and by evening his closet was empty. No note, no explanation, just gone. My mother never talked about it. She just worked harder, picked up extra shifts at the grocery store, started cleaning houses on weekends. I watched her come home exhausted, her hands cracked and dry, and I made a promise to myself. When I grew up, I would build a family that stayed together. I would find a man who would never leave. I had a younger brother named Tyler. He was 5 years younger than me, so when our father disappeared, I became like a second parent to him. I helped him with homework, made him sandwiches for school, sat with him when he had nightmares. Our mother was grateful, but too tired to say it most days. By the time I finished high school, I had developed a certain kind of personality. I was the caretaker, the one who put others first, the one who believed that if you loved someone enough, if you sacrificed enough, they would never leave you. Looking back now, I can see how that belief set me up for what was coming. But at the time, it felt like wisdom. I went to community college, then transferred to a state university to study accounting. Numbers made sense to me. They followed rules. They did not abandon you without explanation. After graduation, I got a job at a mid-sized company in Seattle. The pay was decent, the work was steady, and for the first time in my life, I felt stable. But I was lonely. At 26, I had dated a few men, nothing serious. I was so focused on building security that I forgot to build a life. My co-workers had husbands' children weekend plans. I had spreadsheets and a small apartment with a cat named Biscuit. Then I met Derek. It was at a party thrown by my best friend Jenna. She worked in marketing for a real estate company, and the party was full of people I did not know. I almost did not go. I had a headache, and the idea of making small talk with strangers sounded exhausting. But Jenna insisted. I remember walking into her apartment and feeling overwhelmed by the noise and the crowd. I found a quiet corner near the window and stood there holding a glass of wine I did not really want to drink. That is when he appeared. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches, with dark hair, and a smile that seemed to light up his whole face. He walked over to me like we already knew each other. "You look like you would rather be anywhere else," he said. I laughed, surprised by his honesty. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who feels the same way," he replied. "I am Derek, by the way." Marina. We talked for 2 hours that night. He told me about his work in real estate, how he had started from nothing after losing his mother to cancer a few years earlier. His father had died when he was young. He said so he had been alone in the world for a long time. My heart ached for him. Here was someone who understood loss, who had survived abandonment just like me. He asked about my family, and I told him about my father leaving, about my mother's sacrifices, about Tyler. He listened in a way that made me feel seen, not just heard, but truly seen. When the party ended, he asked for my number. I gave it to him without hesitation. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. He brought me flowers, yellow roses, because I had mentioned once that yellow was my favorite color. I was touched that he remembered such a small detail. Over the next 6 months, Derek was everything I had ever wanted. He was attentive, thoughtful, romantic. He cooked dinner for me when I had a bad day at work. He sent me good morning texts that made me smile before I even got out of bed. He talked about the future, about building a life together, about the family we might have someday. There were small things that I noticed, but brushed aside. He never let me come to his apartment. He always had a reason. It was being renovated. He was staying with a friend temporarily. The landlord was difficult. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Jenna was less convinced. One evening after Derek had left my apartment, she called me. "There is something about him that bothers me," she said. "What do you mean?" "I do not know. He is almost too perfect, you know. Like he is playing a role." I dismissed her concerns. Jenna was protective of me sometimes, overly so. I told her she was being paranoid, that Derek was simply a good man who had been through a lot. She did not bring it up again, but I could tell she was not convinced. After a year of dating, Derek proposed. We were at the same restaurant where we had our first date. He got down on one knee, opened a small velvet box, and asked me to be his wife. I said yes before he even finished the question. Our wedding was small, just close family and a few friends. My mother came from Portland looking tired but happy. Tyler was there, grown up now, working as a mechanic. Jenna was my maid of honor, though she smiled a little less than I expected. On Derek's side, only 2 people attended. 2 friends from work, he said. His family was gone. I felt sad for him, but also determined to give him the family he had lost. After the wedding, we rented a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood outside Seattle. It was not fancy, but it was ours. I imagined filling it with children someday, with laughter and noise and all the things I had missed growing up. The first year was good. Derek was loving, present, everything a husband should be. But somewhere in the second year, things started to shift. His real estate work became inconsistent. Some months he made good money, other months nothing at all. I did not mind picking up the slack. That is what partners do, I told myself. I got a promotion at work and used the extra income to cover our expenses. Derek started working late or so, he said. He would come home at 10 or 11 at night, explaining that he had been showing properties or meeting with clients. I believed him. Why would I not? I noticed he was protective of his phone. He never left it lying around, never let me see who he was texting. When I asked about it once casually, he got defensive. Everyone deserves privacy, Marina, even married people. I backed off. I did not want to be the suspicious wife, the one who checked her husband's phone and demanded explanations. I trusted him. That trust would become the most expensive mistake of my life. We talked about having children. I was ready. I was 30, then 31, and I could hear my biological clock ticking. But Derek always found a reason to wait. "Let me get my business stable first," he would say. "I do not want to bring a child into financial uncertainty." It sounded reasonable. It sounded responsible. So I waited. 3 years passed, then 4, then 5. And somewhere along the way, I stopped asking about children. I stopped asking about a lot of things. I had become so focused on being a good wife, on supporting Derek through his professional struggles, that I forgot to ask whether my own needs were being met. But I still loved him. Or at least I loved the man I believed him to be. It started with headaches. Derek began complaining about them in our 5th year of marriage. At first they were occasional, nothing serious. He would take some aspirin, lie down for an hour, and feel better. But over time they became more frequent, more intense. Then came the fatigue. Derek, who had always been energetic, started sleeping 10 or 12 hours a day. He lost weight without trying. He became forgetful sometimes, repeating the same question twice in one conversation. I begged him to see a doctor. He resisted for months, saying he was just stressed, just overworked. But when he started having episodes of dizziness, nearly falling down the stairs one morning, I put my foot down. "You are going to the doctor," I said. "Tomorrow. I will drive you myself." He finally agreed. The tests took weeks. Blood work, MRIs, consultations with specialists. I took time off work to accompany him to every appointment. I held his hand in waiting rooms and told him everything would be fine. Then came the diagnosis. We sat in Dr. Patterson's office, a small room with 2 bright lights and anatomical posters on the walls. The doctor was a kind man in his 60s with grey hair and a gentle voice. But there was nothing gentle about what he had to tell us. Derek had a rare degenerative neurological condition. The disease would progress slowly, attacking his nervous system, weakening his muscles, affecting his cognitive function. There was no cure. Treatment could manage symptoms, but it could not stop the inevitable. Life expectancy was 5 to 10 years, maybe less. I do not remember much of what happened after that. I know I cried. I know Derek held my hand. I know Dr. Patterson gave us pamphlets and referrals and spoke words that I could not absorb. What I remember most clearly is the drive home. Derek was quiet, staring out the window at the grey Seattle sky. I kept glancing at him, expecting him to fall apart. But he seemed almost peaceful. "I have been preparing for this," he said softly. "What do you mean?" "I always knew something was wrong. I could feel it. Now at least we know what we are dealing with." His calmness confused me at the time. Later, I would understand it differently. Our lives changed overnight. I researched the disease obsessively, joining online support groups, reading medical journals, looking for any sliver of hope. I adjusted our apartment to accommodate Derek's needs. I reduced my hours at work, then switched to working remotely so I could be home with him. The financial strain was immediate and crushing. Derek's income, already inconsistent, disappeared entirely. Medical bills piled up. Medications were expensive. Physical therapy sessions 3 times a week added up quickly. I drained our savings account within 6 months. Derek told me not to worry about money. He had a life insurance policy, he said, a big one. $500,000. When he was gone, I would be taken care of. I did not want to think about that. I did not want his money. I wanted him to live. For 3 years, I was his caregiver, his nurse, his everything. I woke up at 6 to prepare his medications. I cooked special meals according to his dietary restrictions. I drove him to appointments, helped him in and out of the shower, stayed awake through the night when his pain was bad. I lost 15 pounds. My hair started falling out from stress. I stopped seeing friends because I had no time, no energy. Jenna called regularly, worried about me, but I always told her I was fine. "You are killing yourself," she said once. "He needs professional help, Marina. You cannot do this alone." "He is my husband," I replied. "This is what marriage means, in sickness and in health." She sighed, but did not push. She knew I would not listen. There were moments when things did not add up, small discrepancies that my exhausted mind registered but did not examine. Once late at night, I woke up and found Derek's side of the bed empty. I walked through the apartment looking for him and found him in the spare room doing push-ups in the dark. When he saw me, he stopped immediately. "What are you doing?" I asked, confused. His doctors had said he barely had the strength to walk across the room. "Physical therapy exercises," he said quickly. The therapist said I should try to maintain what muscle I have left. It sounded reasonable. Everything he said always sounded reasonable. Another time, I noticed that the pill bottles in his medicine cabinet did not seem to be emptying as fast as they should. If he was taking his medications as prescribed, there should have been fewer pills. But when I counted them, the numbers did not match. I almost said something. But then Derek had a bad day, crying about how he did not want to die, how he was sorry for being a burden. And my suspicions evaporated in a wave of guilt. How could I question a dying man? Looking back, I want to shake my past self. I want to scream at her to open her eyes, to trust her instincts to ask the hard questions. But she was too tired, too devoted, too desperate to believe that her sacrifices meant something. She could not see what was right in front of her. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when I heard a crash from the bedroom. I ran in to find Derek on the floor, his body convulsing foam at the corners of his mouth. I dialed 911 with shaking hands and screamed our address into the phone. The next minutes were a blur of terror. The paramedics arrived, loaded Derek onto a stretcher, asked me questions I could barely answer. I followed the ambulance to Seattle General Hospital, driving through red lights. My heart pounding so hard I thought it might stop. At the hospital, they rushed Derek into the emergency room. A nurse told me to wait, that someone would update me soon. I sat in a plastic chair in the waiting area, staring at the white walls, praying to a God I was not sure I believed in. Hours passed. Finally, Dr. Patterson appeared. His face was grave. "The disease has progressed faster than we anticipated," he said. "His organs are beginning to fail. We have moved him to the intensive care unit." "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "It means you should prepare yourself, Mrs. Lawson. He may not have much time left. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life." I practically lived at the hospital, sleeping on a chair beside Derek's bed, eating vending machine food when I remembered to eat at all. My mother flew in from Portland to be with me. Tyler came too, taking time off work. Jenna visited every day, bringing me coffee and clean clothes and trying to convince me to go home and rest. I refused. What if Derek woke up and I was not there? What if he died while I was gone? Friends and co-workers sent flowers and cards. People I had not spoken to in years reached out with condolences. Everyone was so sorry. Everyone said what a good wife I was, how lucky Derek was to have me. I did not feel lucky. I felt like I was drowning. One evening, about 2 weeks after Derek was admitted, Dr. Patterson asked to speak with me privately. We stood in the hallway outside the ICU, both of us exhausted. "I have to be honest with you," he said. "Derek is not responding to treatment. His body is shutting down. It could be days, possibly less." I nodded, numb. I had been preparing for this moment for 3 years, but nothing could truly prepare you for the death of someone you loved. "Is there anything I can do?" I asked. "Be with him. Talk to him. Tell him it is okay to let go." That night I sat beside Derek's bed and held his hand. He was awake, but weak. His eyes barely open. His breath shallow and ragged. "I love you," I told him. "I have always loved you. Thank you for 8 years. Thank you for choosing me." He squeezed my hand weakly. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I am so sorry for everything." I thought he meant sorry for being sick, sorry for leaving me, sorry for all the plans we would never fulfill. "Do not apologize," I said, tears streaming down my face. "None of this is your fault." He closed his eyes, and I thought he had fallen asleep. I leaned forward and kissed his forehead, tasting the salt of my own tears. "Rest now," I whispered. I will be okay. I promise. I stayed a few more minutes watching his chest rise and fall, memorizing the face I thought I would never see again. Then I stood up, my legs stiff from sitting, and walked toward the door. I needed air. I needed to call my mother to tell her the end was near. I needed to fall apart somewhere private, away from the beeping machines and the sterile smell of the hospital. I walked out of the room and down the hallway, my footsteps echoing on the linoleum floor. It was late, almost 11 at night, and the corridor was nearly empty. A few nurses moved between rooms, their voices low. I stopped near the end of the hallway by a window overlooking the parking lot. The night was dark, the streetlights casting yellow circles on the wet pavement. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass and let myself cry. That is when I heard them. Two voices coming from a room nearby. The break room, I realized, where the nurses gathered between shifts. The door was slightly open and their words carried clearly in the quiet hallway. They were talking about my husband. I should have walked away. I should have kept moving toward the elevator, called my mother, gone outside to breathe. But something in their tone made me stop. Something in the way one of them said his name. Did you hear about the patient in room 412? Derek Lawson. The one who is dying. Yeah, his wife is here all the time. Poor woman. That is the thing. Susan from the lab was telling me something strange about his test results. I flattened myself against the wall, my heart suddenly pounding. Susan. The lab. Test results. Strange how she said the most recent blood work does not match his diagnosis, like at all. If you did not know his medical history, you would think he was a healthy man. What? That does not make sense. That is what Susan said. And there is more. She found traces of medications in his system that are not on his prescription list. Stuff that can cause neurological symptoms if you take enough of it. The other nurse gasped. Are you saying he is faking? Susan is not sure yet. She is doing more tests, going to report it to the higher-ups. But it looks suspicious. My knees went weak. I grabbed the wall to steady myself, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. That is insane. Why would anyone fake being that sick? Who knows, money maybe. Attention. Some people are messed up. There is something else. You know how his wife goes home sometimes to rest. Well, there is this woman who shows up after she leaves, late at night, like 2 or 3 in the morning. A woman who nobody knows. She is not on the visitor list. But security has seen her on the cameras. She goes into his room, stays for a few hours, leaves before dawn. Maybe it is just a friend. The first nurse laughed bitterly. A friend who kisses him on the mouth. Security saw that too. The world tilted. I felt like I was falling, though my feet were still planted on the floor. My husband. My dying husband. The man I had sacrificed everything for. The man I had just said goodbye to. Not dying. Not faithful. Not anything he had pretended to be. I do not know how long I stood there. Minutes, maybe. The nurses eventually changed topics, talking about their schedules, their weekend plans. Normal things. Mundane things. While my entire life crumbled around me. Finally, I forced myself to move, not toward the elevator, not toward the parking lot. I walked back down the hallway, past Derek's room, past the nurses' station, and found an empty waiting area near the stairwell. I sat down on a hard plastic chair and tried to think. Everything I had noticed over the years came rushing back. The phone he guarded so carefully. The late nights he claimed were for work. The apartment he never let me visit before we were married. The strange calmness when he received his diagnosis. The pill counts that did not add up. the push-ups in the dark. It all made a terrible kind of sense now, but I needed to be sure. I could not confront him, could not act until I had proof. If I was wrong, I would never forgive myself. And if I was right, I needed evidence that would hold up evidence that would protect me from whatever scheme he had planned. I wiped my tears. I straightened my spine. And I made a decision. I would find the truth, no matter what it took. I did not go home that night. Instead, I found a corner of the waiting room where I could see the hallway leading to Derek's room and settled in to wait. The hours crawled by. Nurses came and went. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. I drank bad coffee from the vending machine and pretended to read a magazine whenever someone walked past. At 2:17 in the morning, she appeared. She was about 30 years old, slender, with shoulder-length brown hair and expensive-looking clothes. She walked with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was going. She did not check in at the nurse's station. She did not hesitate outside Derek's room. She simply opened the door and went in. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and took a picture of her from across the hallway. The image was blurry, distant, but it was something. She stayed for almost 3 hours. At 5 minutes past 5, she emerged looking relaxed, almost happy. She walked down the hallway toward the elevator without glancing back. I followed her. I kept my distance, staying far enough behind that she would not notice me. She took the elevator to the ground floor, walked through the lobby, and exited into the parking garage. I watched from behind a pillar as she got into a silver luxury sedan. I memorized her license plate number, repeating it to myself until I could write it down. Then I went home. I had not slept in over 30 hours, but I could not rest. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started searching. I did not have access to DMV records, but I knew someone who might help. A former co-worker of mine, Linda, now worked at an insurance company. We had stayed in touch over the years, exchanging Christmas cards and occasional texts. I hated to involve her, but I was desperate. I called her at 7:30, apologizing for the early hour. "Marina, is everything okay? I heard about your husband. I am so sorry." "Thank you, Linda. Actually, I need a favor. A big one." I explained that I needed to identify the owner of a vehicle, gave her the license plate number, and asked if there was any way she could help. She hesitated. "That is not exactly legal, Marina. I could lose my job." "I know. I would not ask if it was not important. Please, Linda. I think someone is trying to hurt me, and I need to know who." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "Give me the plate number again." 20 minutes later, she called back. "The car is registered to Allison Mercer. Address is in Seattle, uptown area. That is all I can tell you." I thanked her profusely and hung up. Then I typed the name into my search engine. Allison Mercer, real estate agent at a high-end firm in Seattle. Her professional photo showed a polished, attractive woman with a confident smile. The same woman I had followed through the hospital parking garage. I dug deeper. Social media profiles, professional listings, news articles. And slowly a picture began to emerge. Allison had worked at the same real estate company as Derek 10 years ago before I ever met him. I found old photos of company events where they stood together, smiling, his arm around her shoulders. They looked like a couple. They had known each other for a decade. They had been together before me. And based on what the nurses said, they were still together. I felt sick, but I kept searching. When I could not find any more information online, I knew I needed to look closer to home. I went into our bedroom and started going through Derek's things. His desk was mostly empty, just old receipts and junk mail. His closet held nothing unusual. But then I checked the top shelf of the closet behind a stack of old sweaters, and my fingers closed around something hard. A phone. A second phone I had never seen before. It was not password protected. Derek probably never expected me to find it. I opened it with trembling hands and began to read. The messages went back years, 8 years, our entire marriage. Allison and Derek had never stopped seeing each other. I was simply part of a plan, a pawn in a game I did not know I was playing. The early messages were casual, affectionate. He called her my love and my future. He talked about me with contempt. She is perfect, he wrote once. Trusting, hard-working, desperate for stability. She will never suspect. Later messages outlined the scheme. Derek would pretend to be sick. I would take care of him, draining my savings in the process. His life insurance policy would pay out $500,000 when he died. But I was not the beneficiary anymore. I scrolled frantically until I found the message that confirmed my worst fears. Changed the policy last month, Derek had written. Allison is listed as my sister now. When this is over, the money goes to her. Then we disappear together. There was more. Messages about the medications Derek was taking to fake his symptoms. Messages about how to avoid detection. Messages laughing about how easy I was to manipulate. And then, from just 3 days ago, a message from Allison. Almost done, baby. Once she signs that last paper, we are free. That last paper. I suddenly remembered all the documents Derek had asked me to sign over the past few months. He said they were medical forms, insurance paperwork, things I needed to handle as his spouse. I had signed them without reading carefully. I was too exhausted, too trusting. I ran to the drawer where I kept important documents and pulled out the folder. Most of it was legitimate. But near the bottom, I found something I did not recognize. A power of attorney document. It would give Derek or his designated representative complete control over my finances and assets. I had not signed it yet. He had told me we would handle it later after I had rested. If I had signed it, I would have lost everything. I sat down hard on the floor, the phone in one hand, the unsigned document in the other. My husband had never loved me. Our entire marriage was a lie, and he had almost gotten away with it. Almost. The next morning I called Jenna. I told her everything. The nurse's conversation, the woman named Allison, the second phone, the messages, the fake illness, the insurance fraud, all of it. She listened in silence. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. I knew something was wrong with him. I knew it from the beginning. Marina, I am so sorry. I do not need apologies. I need help. Whatever you need, tell me what to do. I need a lawyer, a good one, someone who handles fraud cases. Jenna knew someone, a friend of a friend named Nathan Brooks, a former prosecutor who now worked in private practice. She called him while I was still on the phone with her and arranged a meeting for that afternoon. Nathan's office was in a tall building downtown, all glass and steel and intimidating efficiency. He was a serious man in his 40s, with sharp eyes and no patience for small talk. I told him my story. I showed him the phone, the messages, the unsigned power of attorney. I told him what the nurses had said about the lab results. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. If what you are telling me is true, your husband and his accomplice are guilty of multiple crimes: insurance fraud, identity fraud, attempted theft, possibly elder abuse since you were essentially his caretaker under false pretenses. Can I prove it? The messages on the phone are strong evidence, but we need more. The medical records specifically. If we can show that his illness was fabricated, that he was taking medications to simulate symptoms, we have an airtight case. How do we get those records? I will contact the hospital. Given the circumstances, they may be willing to cooperate. A fraudulent diagnosis makes them liable too. Over the next few days, Nathan worked his magic. He obtained the lab reports that Susan had flagged. He secured Derek's complete medical history. He hired a forensic accountant to trace Derek's finances and found evidence that he had been funneling money to Allison for years. I also hired a private investigator, a quiet woman named Grace, who specialized in domestic cases. She followed Allison for a week and documented her visits to the hospital, her meetings with Derek when I was not there, their whispered conversations and stolen embraces. It was painful to see, but it was also liberating. Every piece of evidence was another chain, breaking, another lie exposed. When we had gathered enough, Nathan called a meeting. "We have two options," he said. "We can go to the police now and file criminal charges, or we can confront your husband first, give him a chance to explain himself." "There is nothing to explain," I said. "I know what he did." "Then we go to the police." But I wanted one more thing. I wanted to look Derek in the eye and let him know that I knew. I wanted to see his face when his perfect plan fell apart. "I want to confront him," I said. "Before the arrest. I need to do that." Nathan nodded. "We can arrange that. But the police should be ready to move immediately after. We do not want to give him time to run." I agreed. We set the plan in motion. 3 days later, I walked back into Seattle General Hospital. But this time, I was not the grieving wife. I was something else entirely. The door to Derek's room was closed. I pushed it open without knocking. He was sitting up in bed, looking healthier than I had seen him in years. His color was good. His eyes were clear. When he saw me, he immediately slouched, putting on the mask of weakness he had worn for so long. "Marina," he said weakly, "you came back." "Drop the act, Derek. I know everything." His face flickered just for a moment. Then the mask returned. "What are you talking about? I do not understand." I pulled out the second phone and held it up. "I found this. I read the messages, all of them. Every lie you told Allison about me. Every detail of your plan to fake your death and steal the insurance money." The color drained from his face. For the first time in 8 years, I saw the real Derek. Not the loving husband, not the dying patient. Just a scared, selfish man caught in his own web. "Marina, let me explain." "There is nothing to explain. You never loved me. You used me. You would have left me with nothing." "That is not true. I did love you. I do love you. Things just got complicated." I laughed. It came out harsh and broken. "Complicated? You call this complicated? You were sleeping with another woman for our entire marriage. You faked a terminal illness. You tried to steal my money and destroy my life. That is not complicated, Derek. That is evil." He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the door opened again. Allison walked in. She froze when she saw me, her eyes widening in shock. For a moment, nobody moved. "Hello, Allison," I said calmly. "I was wondering when you would show up." She looked at Derek, then back at me. Her face cycled through several emotions: surprise, fear, and then inexplicably defiance. "So you figured it out," she said. "Took you long enough." 8 years, I agreed. 8 years of lies. But it ends today. "What are you going to do?" "You have no proof." I smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Actually, I have Derek's phone with every message you two ever exchanged. I have medical records proving his illness was faked. I have financial records showing the money he sent you. I have video footage of your late-night visits to this room. And right now there are 2 police officers waiting in the hallway." On cue, the door opened. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. Derek started to panic. He actually tried to get out of bed, but he was too weak from months of inactivity. Or maybe he was still pretending. I no longer cared. Derek Lawson, you are under arrest for insurance fraud and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. Alison Mercer, you are under arrest as an accessory. They read them their rights. They put them in handcuffs. Derek tried to catch my eye as they led him away, but I turned my back. I did not need to see him anymore. I had already said goodbye. The real goodbye, not to a dying husband, but to a lie I had believed for far too long. The trial took 6 months. The evidence was overwhelming. Derek was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Alison received 4 years as his accomplice. I filed for divorce while Derek was awaiting trial. It was finalized before he was even sentenced. I took back my maiden name. I was Marina Collins again, the woman I had been before I ever met him. The insurance company voided Derek's policy due to fraud, so there was no payout for anyone. But the court ordered Derek to pay restitution for the money I had spent on his fake medical care. I would probably never see most of it, but it felt like justice anyway. I sold the apartment we had shared and moved to a new place, a small but bright studio with big windows and a view of the water. I adopted a cat from the shelter, an orange tabby I named Honey. I started over. The first few months after the trial were the hardest. I thought exposing Derek would bring me peace, but instead I found myself struggling with a different kind of pain. Not grief for the marriage I had lost, but grief for the person I had been. The trusting, devoted woman who had given everything to a man who deserved nothing. I could not sleep. I kept replaying our relationship in my mind, looking for signs I had missed, blaming myself for being so blind. I lost weight. I stopped answering calls from friends. I was free of Derek, but I was not free of the damage he had done. My mother came to stay with me for a few weeks. She did not say much, but she was there. She cooked meals I barely touched. She sat with me while I stared out the window. She held me when I cried. "You did nothing wrong," she told me one night. "You loved someone. That is not a crime. He is the one who betrayed that love. The shame is his, not yours." I wanted to believe her, but believing would take time. Eventually, at Jenna's insistence, I started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Reyes, a calm woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. She helped me understand that what I had experienced was not just betrayal, but abuse, emotional manipulation, gaslighting, financial exploitation. "You were victimized by a skilled predator," she told me. "The fact that you survived, that you found the truth and took action, shows incredible strength. Now we need to help you see that strength in yourself." Slowly, painfully, I began to heal. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my years of caregiving. I took Jenna out for dinner and apologized for pushing her away when she tried to warn me about Derek. "You do not owe me an apology," she said. "You were in love. Love makes us all a little blind." I went back to work at a new company this time, with new colleagues who knew nothing about my past. It felt good to have a purpose again, to solve problems that had solutions to rebuild the financial security I had lost. I started taking care of myself in ways I had forgotten. I joined a yoga class. I learned to cook new recipes. I read books for pleasure, not just to escape. I traveled to Portland to visit my mother and Tyler, and we laughed together for the first time in years. 1 year after the trial, I received a letter at my new address. The return address was a state prison. It was from Derek. I almost threw it away, unopened. But curiosity got the better of me. I sat down at my kitchen table and read. He wrote that he was sorry, that he had made terrible choices, that he had loved me in his own way, even if he had never shown it. He asked for my forgiveness. I read the letter twice, then I folded it neatly and put it in a drawer. I did not write back. There was nothing to say. But I realized, reading his words, that I no longer felt the burning anger I had carried for so long. I did not forgive him exactly. What he did was unforgivable. But I had stopped letting it poison me. That was its own kind of freedom. Today, I am 36 years old. I live alone, but I am not lonely. I have friends who care about me. I have a job that challenges me. I have a cat who greets me at the door every evening. I do not know what the future holds. Maybe I will fall in love again someday. Maybe I will not. Either way, I know one thing for certain. I will never lose myself in another person again. I will never sacrifice my identity, my health, my finances, for someone who does not deserve it. I have learned to trust my instincts. When something feels wrong, I pay attention now. I ask questions, I look for proof, I protect myself. Some people might call that cynical. I call it wisdom. If you are watching this and you recognize something in my story, if there are red flags in your own relationship that you have been ignoring, please listen to me. Trust yourself. Your instincts exist for a reason. The people who truly love you will never ask you to diminish yourself for them. There are 5 things I want you to remember from my story. First, real love does not demand that you lose yourself. If you are giving everything and receiving nothing, that is not partnership. That is exploitation. Second, warning signs are always there. We just have to be brave enough to see them. Pay attention to the small things, the inconsistencies, the moments when something does not feel right. Third, your strength is greater than you know. I never thought I could survive what Derek did to me, but I did. And so can you. Fourth, forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about freeing yourself from anger and resentment. You do not have to reconcile with someone to let go of the weight they put on your shoulders. Fifth, every ending can be a beginning. I thought saying goodbye to my husband at that hospital was the end of my story. It turned out to be the start of a new one, a better one. I walked out of that hospital room thinking I had lost everything, but what I actually lost was a lie. And what I gained was the truth about Derek, the truth about my marriage, and most importantly, the truth about myself. I am stronger than I knew, I am wiser than I was, and I am finally completely free. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever discovered a painful truth that changed everything you believed about someone you loved? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is going through something similar. If this story touched you, please hit the like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel so you do not miss future stories. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. It was not easy to tell, and I know it was not easy to hear. But I believe that sharing our pain helps us heal, and maybe helps others avoid the same mistakes. Take care of yourselves, trust yourselves. And remember, no matter how dark things seem, there is always a way forward. There is always a new beginning waiting for you on the other side of goodbye.